The 24 hours that connected night to dawn. The clock read 0:47 a.m. While alarm sirens echoed through the Situation Room at the White House in Washington, the world didn't yet know it stood on the precipice of World War III. The message coming through encrypted channels was brief and clear. The Russian Federation had elevated all strategic nuclear forces to DEFCON 2 level, and there was an ultimatum: 24 hours. The date was May 14, 2025. In years to come, historians would remember this date as the moment humanity escaped by a hair's breadth. But that morning, no one could predict how this would end. Pentagon analysts on the night shift detected the first signals at 0:32 a.m. Russia's strategic bomber fleet had been mobilized. T-160 aircraft were plotting routes over the North Pole. Nuclear submarines were taking new positions in the dark waters of the Atlantic. When red lights began flashing at the NORAD command center, senior officers activated a defense protocol they hadn't seen in 30 years. All of this erupted following an incident that occurred just 9 hours earlier off the Baltic coast. But the crisis had roots much deeper, much darker than that single event.
The triggered domino. On the evening of May 13th, a NATO drone had been shot down near the Estonian border. Official statements claimed technical malfunction, but information leaked from the Kremlin told a different story. The drone had violated Russian airspace during an illegal reconnaissance mission. Moscow's response came far harsher than expected. Vladimir Putin's address to the nation aired at 2300 Moscow time. The tone was cold and resolute. NATO's provocative actions toward our borders have crossed the red lines of the Russian Federation, Putin had said, staring directly into the camera. From now on, every attack on our sovereignty will be met with all our capabilities, including our nuclear capacity. 3 hours after this statement, the phone at the White House started ringing. When President Trump was awakened at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, his initial reaction was anger. "Tell Putin he can't intimidate us with these kinds of threats," he had ordered his security advisors. But when he joined the Situation Room meeting, his expression changed upon seeing the satellite imagery presented by the CIA director. Russia wasn't just threatening, it was taking action. The last direct communication between the two superpower leaders dated back months, and that conversation had ended in a cold atmosphere. Now standing between the two men wasn't just pride and ego, but the fate of millions of people.
Deep breath. The world held its breath. As morning hours arrived, the crisis could no longer be concealed. Emergency meetings were being held in European capitals. In Paris, Berlin, and London, government officials didn't sleep through the night. The NATO Secretary General was trying to coordinate with member countries over a permanently open line at the Brussels headquarters. But the real panic wasn't among the public, but in the closed-door meeting rooms of governments. Because everyone knew, if the wrong decision was made, if the wrong button was pressed, there would be no turning back. Before the New York Stock Exchange opened, Asian markets had crashed. Tokyo's Nikkei index lost 8% of its value. Hong Kong and Shanghai stock exchanges experienced historic drops. Gold prices hit the ceiling. Cryptocurrencies suddenly surged. People were shifting their money to precious metals and digital assets because instinctively they knew banknotes would mean nothing in a nuclear conflict. Social media platforms had gone wild.
The hashtags WW3 and nuclear crisis had climbed to the top of the global agenda on Twitter, but governments were working with all their might to control information leaks. Internet speeds were slowed in some countries. Covert directives were given to television channels to prevent panic from spreading. At midday, Pope Francis made a peace appeal from the Vatican. The United Nations Secretary General called for an emergency Security Council meeting. But everyone knew that if Trump and Putin couldn't reach an agreement, no international institution could resolve this crisis.
Backstage diplomacy. There was a truth kept in from the public. During the crisis, extremely intense diplomatic traffic was happening behind the scenes. One of Trump's former foreign affairs advisors had established direct contact with Moscow. The aim was to open a dialogue channel outside official channels. At 1400 in the afternoon, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan called both Trump and Putin, offering mediation. Erdogan had close relations with both leaders, and Ankara could serve as neutral ground. But Trump politely declined this offer. "We'll handle this between us," he had said. As hours progressed, tension increased. According to information leaked from the Pentagon, U.S. nuclear submarines had also moved to battle positions. Both sides were waiting for the other to make the first move. But the side that made the first move would also be remembered as history's executioner. And no leader wanted to carry that stigma. In the evening hours, a ray of hope appeared. According to an unofficial source from Moscow, some moderate figures around Putin were arguing that escalating tensions was wrong. The power balance in the Kremlin was on the verge of an internal conflict. Could Putin withstand the pressure coming from his own team?
The weight of the final hours. As it approached 2200 at night, only a few hours remained until the ultimatum's expiration. The atmosphere in the White House Situation Room had grown heavy. President Trump sat at the head of the table, hands pressed against his temples, thinking. The defense secretary standing beside him waited silently. Everyone knew a decision had to be made. At 23:34, an unexpected signal came through the encrypted line. From the Kremlin, Putin wanted to speak directly with Trump. The room suddenly fell silent. All eyes turned to the phone. The call lasted exactly 19 minutes. Only a few people in the room knew what was discussed behind closed doors. But when the call ended, the expression on Trump's face had changed. Tension had given way to a deep breath. "We have an agreement," Trump had said, turning to the team at the table. "We're going to de-escalate. Both of us are taking a step back." The details weren't yet clear, but the basic outline was this. NATO would reduce military activity in the Baltic region. Russia, in turn, would lower its nuclear forces to normal alert levels. Both sides agreed to sit down for negotiations on neutral ground. And most importantly, both leaders would make public calls for restraint. At 5 minutes past midnight, official statements were made simultaneously. The White House and the Kremlin issued similarly toned announcements. Acting with responsibility and maturity, an unnecessary conflict has been prevented. The statements read,
The world that saw the morning. When the sun rose on the morning of May 15th, the world was still standing. Cities hadn't been bombed. Mushroom clouds hadn't risen in the sky. Millions of people learned of the agreement from the news and breathed a deep sigh of relief. But the crisis had left permanent marks. Financial markets had been shaken.
Public confidence had been shaken. And perhaps most importantly, the world was reminded once again how fragile a balance it stood upon. Political analysts would debate the real reasons behind the crisis for years. Some said it was a show of force. Others claimed it was the result of domestic political calculations. But there was one point everyone agreed on. This 24-hour ultimatum was a warning, showing how close humanity had come to the brink. A White House official told reporters in the following weeks. That night, it was decided how history would be written. And thankfully, the decision was made with reason. Sources around Putin said the leader had difficulty making the decision to pick up the phone at the last moment. Pride weighed heavily, but responsibility weighed heavier. A Kremlin official had said, without revealing their identity.
Conclusion. Those who returned from beyond the brink. The May 2025 crisis went down in records as the most serious nuclear tension moment since the Cold War. Historians compare it to the Cuban Missile Crisis. But there's a difference. In 1962, the world had come to the brink of a misunderstanding. In 2025, the world had come to the brink of an ego war. Immediately after the crisis, calls came from world leaders for a new disarmament agreement. The UN Security Council proposed urgent reforms regarding nuclear weapons control. But diplomats knew that real change was possible only with leaders' will. And leaders' will was often fragile and unpredictable.
If you did, please remember that I create everything on this channel by myself.
And I can only keep doing this thanks to your likes and comments.
I'm Mustisme. See ya until the next video. As always, take care.